We received your message and we understand. This is very valuable to us and we will pay.
Day 13 of the excruciating search for Savannah's mom, Nancy Guthrie, the FBI has for the first time released identifying details about the armed and masked suspect captured on Nancy's doorbell camera. The suspect is described as male, approximately 5'9" to 5'10", with an average build, wearing a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack, a backpack NBC News has learned is sold exclusively at Walmart. On Thursday morning, FBI agents erecting this pop-up tent outside the home. The Pima County Sheriff says investigators have now recovered several items of evidence, including gloves, which have been submitted for DNA testing.
For 47 minutes, an 84-year-old woman's pacemaker recorded what her doorbell camera could not. At 1:47 in the morning on February 1, 2026, Nancy Guthrie's Nest camera went dark in Tucson, Arizona. At 2:28, her heart monitor disconnected from her iPhone. Between those two timestamps lies one of the most calculated abductions in recent American history. A masked figure in tactical gear. A gun holstered at their side. Gloved hands that left no prints but dropped evidence anyway. And a family that includes one of America's most recognizable faces, desperately begging for answers while the world watches. Just days ago, the FBI doubled their reward to $100,000 after recovering surveillance footage the local sheriff said was impossible to retrieve. Multiple gloves matching the suspects were found scattered across a 1.5-mile radius and sent for DNA testing. A person was detained and released. And the ransom notes keep coming with conflicting demands and no proof of life. Nancy Guthrie is the mother of Today Show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, and she vanished from her bed while investigators now believe someone had been watching her home for nearly a month. What happened in those 47 minutes? Who was the armed figure caught on camera? And why are we only now seeing evidence that could have cracked this case wide open 2 weeks ago? Welcome to Crime Spectre, where we examine the cases that reveal the darkest corners of human nature. Subscribe, like, and share this with someone who loves true crime. Nancy Guthrie was not sitting around waiting to get old. At 84 years old, she lived independently in the Catalina foothills area of Tucson, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in southern Arizona. Her home sat on multiple acres with neighbors separated by significant distance and dense desert vegetation. She was, according to Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, sharp as a tack with no cognitive issues whatsoever. This was a woman who attended virtual church services, maintained an active social life with her 3 children who lived nearby, and managed her own household without assistance. But Nancy did have one vulnerability that would become crucial to this investigation. She had limited mobility and relied on daily medication. Without it, her condition could become fatal. She also had a pacemaker implanted under her skin to regulate her heartbeat. That device, like many modern medical implants, connected wirelessly to an app on her iPhone to monitor her cardiac function in real time. It was designed to save her life. Instead, it would become the silent witness to her disappearance. Nancy's daughter is Savannah Guthrie, the co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, one of the most watched morning programs in America. Her other daughter, Annie Guthrie, lives about 10 minutes away from Nancy's home. Her son also resides in the Tucson area. This was a tight-knit family that saw each other regularly, which is why when Nancy didn't show up for her regular virtual church service on Saturday, February 1st, alarm bells went off immediately. The family called the Pima County Sheriff's Department around noon that day to report her missing. What deputies found when they arrived at her home that afternoon would transform this from a missing person case into something far more sinister. There was blood on the front steps, later confirmed to be Nancy's. Evidence inside suggested she had been taken from her bedroom against her will. Her iPhone was still at the house. So was her Apple Watch. But Nancy Guthrie was gone. The last person to see Nancy was her daughter Annie. On the evening of January 31st, Nancy had dinner at Annie's home. It was a normal family dinner. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Around 9:45 that night, someone drove Nancy back to her home and watched her walk inside safely. She locked her door and went to bed. What Nancy didn't know was that someone had been watching her house. Not just that night, but potentially for weeks. The FBI would later request surveillance footage from neighbors dating back to January 11th, 22 days before her abduction. They were looking for a specific vehicle that had been seen on Via Entrada Street around 10 in the morning on that date. Someone was casing her property. Someone was learning her patterns. Someone knew she lived alone. And in less than 5 hours, that someone would make their move.
The FBI has for the first time released identifying details about the armed and masked suspect captured on Nancy's doorbell camera. The suspect is described as male, approximately 5'9" to 5'10", with an average build, wearing a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack, a backpack NBC News has learned is sold exclusively at Walmart.
1:47 in the morning. Nancy Guthrie's Nest doorbell camera suddenly disconnects. Not a power outage. Not a Wi-Fi glitch. A deliberate disconnection. And we know it was deliberate because 12 days later, the FBI recovered footage from Google's backend servers that shows us exactly what happened at that moment. The video shows a figure approaching Nancy's front door. They are wearing a black ski mask that completely obscures their face. Black gloves cover their hands. A backpack sits on their shoulders, later identified as possibly an Ozark Trail hiker pack, a 25-liter bag sold at Walmart and Amazon for around $20 to $30. The figure is approximately 5'9" to 5'10" tall with an average build. And they are armed. A handgun sits holstered on their hip, clearly visible in the footage. This is not someone who stumbled onto Nancy's property by accident. This person came prepared. This person came equipped. This person came for Nancy Guthrie specifically. The footage shows the individual recognize the doorbell camera immediately. They don't startle. They don't run. Instead, they calmly turn around and pick up what appears to be flowers or desert brush from the landscaping. They walk directly to the camera lens and attempt to cover it with the vegetation. The movements are deliberate, almost casual, like someone who had thought through every step of this plan and was simply executing a checklist. But the camera captured enough. Enough to see the mask. Enough to see the gun. Enough to see the backpack. Enough to know that when this person walked through Nancy's front archway and that camera went dark, it was because they made it go dark. At 2:12 in the morning, 25 minutes after the doorbell camera disconnected, another camera system in Nancy's home detected motion. The Pima County Sheriff would later say they don't have video from this motion detection, only a record that something or someone moved through the house at that exact time. But given what we know now, it seems far more likely it was the masked individual moving through Nancy's home, toward her bedroom, where she was sleeping. What happened in those minutes? Did Nancy wake up? Did she see the masked figure standing over her bed? Did she try to scream? Did she try to fight? We know there was blood found on her front steps. Not inside the house. On the steps leading to her front door. The blood was later confirmed to be Nancy's. Was she injured during a struggle inside and then dragged outside? At 2:28 in the morning, 47 minutes after the doorbell camera went dark, Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker disconnected from her iPhone. That device, designed to monitor her heart and transmit data wirelessly to ensure her safety, stopped communicating with the app. The phone was still in the house. The pacemaker was still in Nancy's chest. But the signal was gone. The most likely explanation is simple and horrifying. At 2:28 in the morning, Nancy Guthrie was no longer inside her home. She had been removed from the range of her Wi-Fi network. She had been taken somewhere her pacemaker could no longer reach her phone. She had been abducted.
Sometimes we're waiting, right? we're waiting for analysis, we're waiting for lab reports. But even then, when they come back quickly, for example, some DNA, we rushed what we thought was the best target for DNA. We did a rush through and got some of that back. The results were minimal. I think you all know of the blood on the porch. That was one we did. It came back to Nancy. That's what we know.
When deputies arrived at Nancy's home on February 1st around noon, more than 12 hours had passed since that pacemaker disconnected. The scene they encountered suggested violence. Blood on the front steps. Signs of a struggle in the bedroom. But no Nancy. Sheriff Nanos would later tell reporters that the scene indicated she had been taken from her bedroom against her will. But in those early hours, the investigation moved slowly. Search and rescue helicopters were deployed as if Nancy had simply wandered away from her home. And most importantly, when investigators tried to retrieve footage from Nancy's Nest doorbell camera, they were told the footage was gone. Corrupted. Unrecoverable. For 12 days, that remained the official story. The doorbell camera had been tampered with and the footage was lost forever. The sheriff's department moved on to other leads. They canvassed neighbors. They requested surveillance video from a Circle K gas station 6 minutes from Nancy's home. But the most crucial piece of evidence, the video showing who was at Nancy's door in the moments before she vanished, was believed to be gone. Then on February 10th, 9 days after Nancy disappeared, FBI Director Kash Patel posted something on social media that would crack this case wide open. 6 black and white photos. 3 video clips. All recovered from what Patel called previously inaccessible residual data located in back-end systems. The FBI had done what the Pima County Sheriff's Department said was impossible. They had recovered the Nest camera footage from Google's servers. And the world finally saw who had come for Nancy Guthrie. The images spread across the internet within hours. Savannah Guthrie posted one of the photos to her Instagram account with a desperate plea. "We believe she is still alive. Bring her home."
We enter into another week of this nightmare. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for all of the prayers and the love that we have felt, my sister and brother and I. We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. Law enforcement is working tirelessly around the clock trying to bring her home, trying to find her. She was taken and we don't know where. And we need your help.
The breakthrough brought new questions. If the FBI could recover this footage, why did it take 12 days? Rick Castigar, a former chief deputy with the Pima County Sheriff's Department who has been a cop in Tucson since 1977, told the Law and Crime Network something stunning. He said he believed Sheriff Nanos's ego prevented him from calling in the FBI early enough. That the case should have immediately switched from a missing person search to a federal kidnapping investigation the moment deputies saw blood on Nancy's front steps. The sheriff's department didn't know the Nest camera footage was recoverable. The FBI knew it was possible and got it done. That 12-day delay meant the public didn't see the masked suspect until nearly 2 weeks after Nancy vanished. The footage changed everything. Within 24 hours of its release, the Pima County Sheriff's Department received over 4,000 tips. The FBI increased their reward from $50,000 to $100,000 for information leading to Nancy's location or the arrest of her abductors. And investigators found new evidence. On Wednesday, February 11th, the FBI conducted a search in Nancy's neighborhood and reportedly found a series of discarded gloves within a 1.5-mile radius. The New York Post photographed them. They appeared to match the type of gloves the masked individual was wearing in the surveillance footage. The gloves were sent to a lab for DNA testing. Then investigators returned to Nancy's home with a new focus. A tent was erected over her front steps, the exact area where the masked figure had been caught on camera and where blood had been found. Experts suggested investigators were either conducting new DNA analysis based on lab results or using specialized equipment to measure the height of the individual in the surveillance footage. The FBI also zeroed in on the suspect's backpack. Sources close to the investigation told local news that the bag appeared to be an Ozark Trail Hiker pack, a popular Walmart brand. It's a 25-liter pack that retails for around $20 to $30. This wasn't expensive tactical gear. This was a cheap, mass-produced item that millions of people own. The kind of thing that suggests this person didn't want to stand out. TMZ reported that surveillance cameras captured someone wearing a similar backpack approximately 5 miles from Nancy's home around 1:50 in the morning on February 1st. Just 17 minutes before Nancy's doorbell camera went dark. Then came the first detention. On Tuesday night, February 10th, authorities pulled over a man named Carlos Palazuelos about an hour south of Tucson near Rio Rico, Arizona. His house was searched with a warrant. He was taken in for questioning and held for several hours before being released. Palazuelos later told Telemundo in Spanish that FBI agents said he looked like the person in the surveillance footage. He acknowledged he works as a delivery driver and couldn't remember if he had ever delivered anything to Nancy's house. But he insisted he didn't know who Nancy Guthrie was and had nothing to do with the kidnapping. He later told reporters he felt kidnapped by the process itself. ABC News reported that the FBI identified Carlos through cell phone usage information and traffic data. After questioning him and searching his home, investigators let him go. He was not arrested. He was not charged. As of February 13th, the FBI has confirmed Carlos is no longer considered a suspect. Sheriff Nanos later told local media that the public should expect more detainments as the investigation continues. Over 13,000 tips have now poured into the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department. The search for Nancy Guthrie has become one of the largest missing person investigations in Arizona history. On February 3rd, just 2 days after Nancy disappeared, 3 news outlets reported receiving ransom notes. TMZ, Gun TV, and another Tucson television station all said they had been contacted by someone claiming to have taken Nancy or to know where she was being held. The original note allegedly demanded $6 million in Bitcoin to be paid by Monday, February 9th. It claimed Nancy was safe but scared and understood the situation she was in. It promised she would be returned within 12 hours if the ransom was paid. It provided no proof of life. Savannah Guthrie's response suggested the family was taking the notes seriously. In a video posted before the deadline, she said, "This is very valuable to us and we will pay." The desperation in her voice was impossible to miss. But the Monday deadline came and went. The ransom was not paid. Nancy was not returned. And the Bitcoin account listed in the ransom note showed no activity. Then Savannah posted a second video with a completely different tone. She thanked everyone for their prayers and said the family believed Nancy was still out there. But instead of negotiating with kidnappers, she made a direct appeal to the public. "We are at an hour of desperation and we need your help." She asked anyone who saw anything, heard anything, or noticed anything strange to contact law enforcement immediately. It was a shift from private negotiation to public plea. For Savannah Guthrie, the ransom clock didn't just run out, it evolved. The family is no longer just waiting for a phone call. They are pleading with the conscience of a city. The ransom notes became more confusing. TMZ reported receiving a second note on Thursday, February 12th, from the same sender. This time, the person wrote, "I am not being taken seriously." But this second note was different. It no longer claimed to be from Nancy's kidnapper. Instead, it claimed to be from someone who knew the kidnapper and knew where Nancy was. They demanded 1 Bitcoin, approximately $66,000, in exchange for the suspect's name. The Bitcoin account listed in the second note was different from the first. TMZ turned both notes over to the FBI. The Bureau has not confirmed whether the notes are legitimate, but sources told TMZ that investigators are operating on the belief they were sent by Nancy's kidnapper or someone connected to the kidnapping. Then the FBI made an arrest that would add another disturbing layer to this case. A man named Derek Colella, 42, of Hawthorne, California, was arrested and charged with sending fraudulent ransom demands to the Guthrie family. He made his initial court appearance on February 6 in California before appearing in Tucson federal court on February 13. The charge alleges he sent 2 text messages to Nancy's daughter Annie and her son-in-law on February 4, just 3 days after Nancy disappeared. The messages read, "Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction." He also allegedly made a 9-second phone call to a family member. Investigators traced the texts to Colella's email and linked them to his home. The complaint states Colella deliberately exploited the family's willingness to pay, preying on their desperation while their loved one was still missing. He was released with pretrial restrictions. The arrest confirmed the FBI's earlier suspicions that multiple parties, some potentially outside the United States, are trying to piggyback on the kidnapping. While Nancy remains missing, opportunistic criminals saw a chance to profit from a family's nightmare. Savannah continues to post about her mother. She shared a video montage showing Nancy over the years with the caption, "Our lovely mom. We will never give up on her. Thank you for your prayers and hope." She posted the surveillance images of the masked suspect and wrote, "Someone out there recognizes this person. We believe she is still alive. Bring her home." President Donald Trump reviewed the surveillance imagery and encouraged Americans with any knowledge of the suspect to contact the FBI. FBI Director Kash Patel personally visited the Tucson Command Center on Monday, February 9. The investigation now involves local, state, and federal agencies. Billboards with Nancy's face have gone up across multiple cities. But Nancy Guthrie is still missing. It has been 14 days since her pacemaker disconnected at 2:28 in the morning. 14 days since someone in a black mask and tactical gear walked through her front door with a gun and took her. Sheriff Nanos says Nancy needs her medication daily or it could be fatal. She has limited mobility. She is 84 years old. Every hour that passes makes the likelihood of finding her alive more uncertain. 47 minutes. That's how long it took for Nancy Guthrie to go from sleeping safely in her bed to being ripped out of her life completely. 47 minutes between a doorbell camera going dark and a pacemaker losing signal. 47 minutes that have now stretched into nearly 2 weeks of unanswered questions and desperate searching. Who was the masked figure caught on camera? Why did they target Nancy specifically? Why did they watch her home for weeks before making their move? And most importantly, where is Nancy Guthrie right now? Is she still alive as her family believes? Or did something go wrong in those 47 minutes that no amount of FBI resources can undo? If you have any information about Nancy's disappearance, contact the Pima County Sheriff at 520-351-4900 or the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. Someone out there knows something. And Nancy's family is waiting.